Hi, in this video I'm going to step through how to create this interactive dashboard in Tableau using two geospatial data sources, a spatial join and map layers. So on the dashboard you can click on these bars to zoom into a particular admin area of Mauritius to see the educational facilities in that particular area, broken out by the type. You can then click on the type of educational facility to zoom in and just show those. Then click again to zoom back out to see the full island and all the educational facilities. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so as a quick reminder, at the end of the previous video I did on map layers, we got to this point where we had two layers, the admin areas and the educational facilities. But when you filtered to the different admin areas, the educational facilities didn't filter because they're on a separate map layer using a separate data source. Okay, so let's go ahead and create the new data source using a spatial join. Okay, so again, I'm going to drag and drop the first data source into the view, and Tableau will go ahead and connect to that and bring us to the data source pane. And again, I'm going to use the second table that has a bit more detail, so we can see all of the admin areas within Mauritius. I just need to exclude those outlying islands again. Okay, and now we're ready to bring in the second data source to make the join. So you can see when I drop the educational facilities spatial file into Tableau, it adds it as a separate connection to this same data source. So it's important to understand this is not a separate data source being added in Tableau, but a separate connection to this same data source. And this is the actual name of the data source at the top here. Okay, so here's the table with the educational facility data. If I drag this into the view, Tableau is going to create a relationship between these two tables. And that's not what we want to do, because if we click on the drop down here, the operator of how these two tables are connected, you can see there's no option to do an intersect. And that's because you can't join geospatial data using relationships in this version of Tableau. So I'm going to drag this out of the view here. And then I'm going to go into the physical layer for this table. So currently we're looking at the logical view. We want to click this drop down and click open, or we can just double click and that'll take us to the physical layer. So now we can make a join as opposed to a relationship. So I'll drag this table into the view and then we'll see the user interface to be able to make a join. And now because we're in the join interface and we have geometry on both sides of the join, we can use the intersect as the operator. Okay, so that makes that join now. So let's just have a look at the interface and the different fields that we have coming in from each table. Okay, so in the lower left, we have a summary of all the different fields and the source tables that they're coming from. We can just hide that by clicking this icon here. Okay, and then you can see there's some color at the top of these fields. So there's blue and there's orange, and that identifies which table they're coming from. So blue is the admin areas, orange is the educational facilities. So you can see that the data about this first admin area, Black River, is repeated 5 times. And that's because there are 5 different educational facilities in that particular admin area. So as we scroll over to the right, so here we can see the other fields that are coming from the educational facilities file with the orange identifier. So we have the name, and we'll make use of that field, and the immunity, which is the type of educational facility, and we'll use that field also. Before we go back to the view, I'm just going to rename this data source. I'm going to call this admin areas and educational facilities. Okay, now let's go back to the view and build the map. So you can see that Tableau is listing all of the fields from both tables and just identifying which table they come from. So we have our 2 geographic fields. I'm going to rename these as well so it's a bit clearer, and also because the map layers take on the name of these geographic fields. So I'll just press F2 to rename. Okay, let's go ahead and bring in the admin areas to the view. I'll just remove the color. Okay, so you can see this again, it's brought that in as one mark at the moment. You can see that in the lower left. So we need to break that out again. So we're going to use the name field, put that onto detail. And now you can see we've got 9 separate marks now on the lower left. Next, we're going to bring in the educational facilities, drop that in as a marks layer. And you can see this has only increased the number of marks up to 10. So there's only 1 mark for the educational facilities. And that's because this spatial file contains points. And all of those points are being aggregated together with the use of this collect aggregation here. So we need to increase the level of granularity to be able to see each individual educational facility separately. And we can do that with this unique identifier. So I'm going to add this dimension to detail. And now you can see we go up to 111 marks now. I'll also add the name on there. Some of them have names, some don't, and we can use those in the tooltip. So now when I hover over each of these, you can see, I see the name and the unique ID. Okay, so let's just change the mark type to a circle. And I'm going to put the amenity, which is the type of educational facility, onto color. And then just make them slightly larger. And I'll put a border on those as well. So that's the map complete. The next thing we want to do is create the bar charts that we're going to interact with on the dashboard. Okay, we'll create a new view and this is going to be educational facilities by type. So I want to count the unique identifier for the educational facilities. So if I drag this field to the columns using the left mouse button, it's going to list all of those unique identifiers out, and we don't want that. So instead what I can do is use the right mouse button, drag that to columns, and this time it's going to ask me what type of aggregation I want to use. And I want to use the count aggregation. Click OK. Now it's telling us that there's 102 facilities in total, which is what we expect to see. Okay, and I'm just going to add labels. And then I want to split this out by type of educational facility, which is this amenity field. So I'll just left click, drag that to the view. And then I'm going to sort them by clicking this icon here. And I can remove the header. And then I'm just going to format the headers to make the text larger. Okay, so with that basic formatting done, I can just duplicate this bar chart. And then I can use that for the second one, which is going to be educational facilities by admin area. So quick tip here, if I bring on the name one field, which is the admin area, you see I lose the formatting on the left here. So instead, if I undo that, what I can do is if I double click on this field and then type the name of the field, so name, and then hit the down arrow to go to this field here, you can see it tells me the source, which is the admin areas, which is the one I want. And if I just click tab to select that, and then I hit return, it now swaps out the field, but also keeps that formatting. So that's a useful time save. Okay, so I've got my two bar charts on the map. We now make the dashboard. Okay, so let's bring the bar charts out first. And then I can bring the map to the right. I'm just going to remove the color code for now. I can make this a bit wider. And then I want these bar charts to fill the view. So I use this option at the top, use entire view. And then I'll just drag this down so this bar chart at the top has a bit more space. Okay, now you can see in the top that these outlying islands are taking up space in the map. And we looked at this in the previous video. I'm just going to go back and remove these, move the admin areas from the extent of the zoom. So do that by going to the admin area, click the drop down and uncheck the add to zoom extent. You see it then zooms in to fill up the space with the educational facilities. Okay, so the only remaining thing to do is just make these charts interactive. So to do that, I'm just going to turn this into a filter. So I click this icon here, use as filter, and then do the same down here. Okay, so now when I click one of these bars, the map zooms into that area. I can also then click on one of the types of educational facilities, such as colleges, and it will zoom into those areas as well. And then click again to zoom out. And there we go, that's the interactive dashboard complete. So I hope that was useful, looking at creating a dashboard and using a spatial join in Tableau. So if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below, and otherwise I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.